The 1982 Oklahoma backfield is one of the most fascinating backfields in the history of college football. On one hand, it was super talented. The top three guys in that backfield all got drafted into the NFL, and another one barely played but eventually broke out and became a first-round pick in 1985. It might have been the best backfield in college football. On the other hand, it seemed like all the top guys in that backfield were involved with something and had some sort of red flag. Almost like how the Florida Gators back in the late 2000s seemed like Tim Tebow surrounded by a bunch of the biggest walking red flags you'll ever see in your life. Leading the way, you had Marcus Dupree, arguably the most talented running back in the history of college football, but a man who was so out of shape, missed a ton of meetings, and would disappear every now and then in one of college football's biggest what-if stories. Behind him, you had Stanley Wilson, an incredibly talented running back who was absolutely instrumental in guiding the Cincinnati Bengals to Super Bowl 23 during the 1988 season, but couldn't stay clean and was suspended in 1985 and 1987 for cocaine and was banned for life the day before Super Bowl 23 after relapsing yet again. The Oklahoma backfield was a talented yet troubled one. And the third man in that backfield that year? Well, that was this man that you've been watching this entire time. This is Weldon Ledbetter. And while you probably know the story behind Marcus Dupree and the story behind Stanley Wilson, I'm willing to bet that you don't know the story behind Ledbetter, because he put on a masterclass in how to end your NFL career after just one day. How quick was this? I mean that he literally got signed and cut on the same day. He went from an NFL player looking to latch onto a roster and showing some potential in a new environment to gone and no one wanting to touch him with a 10-foot pole in a matter of a couple of hours. In terms of the worst possible first impressions to make, Weldon Ledbetter made one of them. And we're going to take a deep dive into it more than 40 years later. Because this is the story behind Weldon Ledbetter, and one of the dumbest players in the history of the NFL. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing and for helping us out. And with that in mind, let's talk about Ledbetter's career not going better at all. Before I talk about the actual incident in question and just how insane it was, because trust me, this is one of the most insane training camp stories you'll ever hear in your life, we need some context to understand just who Weldon Ledbetter is, how good of a player he was, and what he was supposed to bring to the table. The year is 1982, and few running backs in the Big 8 Conference are tougher to stop than Weldon Ledbetter, who had a great frame, great balance, and great speed. The man could seemingly do it all. Need him to line up as a traditional halfback and cut to the outside to get a couple of yards? He could do it. Need him to line up as a fullback and just get a yard or two on 3rd and short? He could do it. Need him to block for Marcus Dupree or Stanley Wilson? Sure enough, he could do it. During the 1982 season, Ledbetter had 585 yards rushing in that crowded backfield, averaging over 5.3 yards per carry, and scoring 2 critical touchdowns in their rivalry victory over Texas, making him an Oklahoma legend by default for his performance at the Cotton Bowl. By the time that 1982 season ended, Ledbetter was 9th in the conference in rushing yards and 6th amongst all qualified running backs in yards per attempt. Keep in mind, he was the 3rd or 4th best option in that backfield. So to be this good in limited carries because you've got Marcus Dupree and Stanley Wilson ahead of you shows just how good you are. Ledbetter was a big reason why Oklahoma made it to the Fiesta Bowl that season and had one of the top rushing offenses in college football, seemingly being unstoppable on the ground. And sure enough, NFL teams took notice, with Weldon Ledbetter projected to go in the 1983 NFL Draft. Because in the 7th round, with pick number 185, the Buccaneers decided to take a chance on the Oklahoma runner, sending him to the Sunshine State to continue his football career. Oddly enough, the next two picks, cornerback Carl Lee with pick number 186 and running back Craig James with pick number 187, both made it to the Pro Bowl with the teams that drafted them. So that was just the typical Bucs luck back in the 1980s. Tampa was looking to improve a ground game that was in the bottom half of the league in every major statistical category during the strike-shortened 1982 season. And seeing as they hadn't taken a running back yet, they figured that Ledbetter could be their guy at this stage. Plus, Ledbetter was being recruited by Notre Dame coming out of high school, and Jim Gruden was infatuated by him, with Gruden now being the running backs coach in Tampa. It seemed on paper like a pretty good fit. However, it was always going to be an uphill climb for Ledbetter to make the roster, even though he signed right away and didn't hold out. For one, he was a 7th-round pick. The chances of making it anyways as a 7th-rounder back then weren't great. Number two, Oklahoma's style of offense, with playing the wishbone, was not a good indication of life in the NFL. Almost like how you're always skeptical of a quarterback in college who ran a triple option offense, because it won't work at the next level. Said Ledbetter entering training camp, "If I had played at USC, it would help me now, because their offense was totally like pro ball. We ran the wishbone in Oklahoma, and I didn't get the training in running passing routes that I need now." In other words, Ledbetter was way behind schedule and had a lot of catching up to do in order to latch onto an NFL roster. I should also note that during this interview, Ledbetter talked a lot about his religion and his faith and how he was a God-fearing man. As he said, "If I don't have a good day, I tell myself I will have a good one tomorrow. Like old Job in the Bible, the Spirit comes upon me." Just keep that in the back of your mind, because I'm fairly confident nothing in Christianity or his faith would tell him to do what he was about to do next. Anyways, Ledbetter did not help himself much in camp. He suffered a bruised leg and a bad hamstring, which was the last thing he needed as someone who needed to be out on the practice field to learn the offense. And he was one of the first men waived, meaning that if he was going to make it in the NFL, it was going to be with a team that didn't draft him. Now, he's really behind the 8 ball. Again, the man drafted right after Ledbetter made 3 Pro Bowls and is regarded as one of the greatest Vikings of all time. And the man drafted right after him was a running back who had over 1,200 yards in 1985 and helped the Patriots make their first Super Bowl in franchise history. So yeah, this was a bit of a blunder on Tampa's end in hindsight. Still, Ledbetter's time in the NFL was not done, even if his time with Tampa was, because there was someone who figured he was worth taking a chance on. That man was Frank Kush, the head coach of the Baltimore Colts. Kush liked what Ledbetter brought to the table at the Senior Bowl, having coached him earlier in the year, and figured that he was worth signing, especially seeing as the Colts were winless the year before and finished with the 4th fewest rushing touchdowns of any team in football. Worth a shot, right? You've got nothing to lose. Turns out, the Colts actually had something to lose with this, because immediately after signing Ledbetter, chaos would ensue. For whatever reason, once he got to Baltimore, he was having second thoughts about football and life in the NFL. He had a job in the past with IBM, and whether it was because he was discouraged with how his career was going thus far, or because of something that happened in practice, Ledbetter wasn't feeling up to playing. After one practice with the Colts, he decided that this might not be for him, and he needed to go home to Oklahoma to clear his mind off of things, meaning that he did not show up on the flight that the team was taking to Minnesota for their preseason game against the Vikings. Which, look, if that's all that happened, I'm not making this video. Players quitting camp after one day and deciding that their heart wasn't in it was a super common occurrence back in the day. And if a team didn't have at least 5 players leave camp on their own, it was shocking and maybe a sign that camp wasn't hard enough. Between 2-a-days and competing in the sweltering sun and heat, especially for guys who haven't been away from home ever and are all by themselves with a lack of technology to communicate with their friends and family regularly like they may be able to in college. It's tough. It can be really hard. And considering the fact that Frank Kush, one of the most notoriously tough coaches in football history, was the one conducting the practices, I get it. Believe me, I get it. However, when Ledbetter decided that he was going to leave the team for a little bit, just to think things over and go home, he realized, oh crap, I need to make a phone call to get a cab so I can go. Makes sense, right? You can't exactly walk or drive from Baltimore to Norman, Oklahoma, and you've got to find a way to make it to the airport, seeing as Ledbetter didn't have a cell phone on him to make a call since this was 1983. There were no payphones around, or he didn't have any money on him. I'm not sure what the payphone layout around the Colts facility was like, but bottom line, Ledbetter needed to make a call. And with that, Ledbetter decided to do one of the dumbest things possible. He used the phones in the press room for the Colts. After the team left for their flight to Minneapolis, he went into the team facility to use their phones and say, hey, come pick me up. I need to go. And I shouldn't really say that he used the phones in the press room, because that implies permission and a standard run-of-the-mill procedure and phone call. I mean that he broke into the press room, breaking not one, but 2 windows in the process. If he was going out, he was going out in a blaze of glory, to the point where he even cut his forearm on the glass, getting injured in the process. Ledbetter basically destroyed and trashed the press room using the windows to break and enter in. And I'm fairly confident that even though it's not explicitly in the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not destroy thy neighbor's property is something that you should abide by, regardless of what you believe in. The damage was so bad that the Baltimore Colts literally were contemplating whether or not to press charges on Ledbetter for the damages. Again, if Ledbetter just left and needed some time to think things over before potentially coming back, which was a super common occurrence back then, fine. But he turned what should have been a routine thing into a tornado of destruction with potential charges against him for destruction of property. Any chance he had at making it in the NFL was gone after this incident. Completely and utterly gone. If he ever wanted to play football again, and spoiler alert, he would try throughout the 1980s to pick up his career again, good luck. Because this was going to be on his resume forever that he broke 2 windows of a team facility and used their property without permission, quitting camp by trashing the facility in the process. It's almost like if you hand in your resignation letter to your boss versus announcing that you're quitting by throwing your desk out the window. If you ever want that job again, and that's the only job in that field, then one of those options is way more inclined to get you a second chance than the other. But shocker, Weldon Ledbetter never played a single down in the NFL. He played 0 snaps in the National Football League, which I can't exactly say he didn't have coming after how he left the Colts. In 1987, Ledbetter said that he was trying to play football and his heart was in it, saying, after I got drafted in 1983, I just really wasn't into it. I just kind of lost interest in football. I wasn't motivated, and I didn't really want to practice. Again, totally understandable for a player to feel that way. Players feel like that all the time. They change their minds regularly. But one moment can ruin a career, and man, it absolutely did here. One really stupid decision, to the point of being criminally stupid, basically ended Ledbetter's career, as that was always that lingering thought in the back of everyone's mind no matter what team signed him or was looking at him. If Ledbetter just left on his own accord without causing any destruction in his path, maybe he would have a few snaps under his belt in the NFL. But when you do what you did to the Colts facility and break a couple of windows, injure your arm on the glass, use their property without permission, and cause so much destruction that your own team that wanted you and just signed you that day is releasing you and is contemplating pressing charges? Good luck overcoming that obstacle. There are red flags, and then there are flags so red that you could mistake it for Mars. And this was one of those. Because in 1983, Weldon Ledbetter led the best speed run out of the NFL ever. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.